Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
Thank you for joining us. This is the Talking Books and Stuff podcast. Our guest today from down in Southern California, we have Chester L. Richards, author, adventurer, Star Trek person. So, hello, Chester. Chet, how's things out your way these days?
Well, it's got clouds in the sky after a massive storm that's just breaking up. And that's a wonderful thing. We need the rain. Most parts, the areas that got burned off don't need the rain, but the rest of us do.
Right. Yeah, well, we're on the prairies in Saskatchewan, so the farmers either have not enough rain or too much rain, or just right, but it just missed, or it's too early, or it's too late. So it doesn't matter. They're always complaining anyway, so that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Well, we never, unless you're in a burned out area, you don't complain about the rain in this part of the world. We pray for that.
That's right.
We pray for rain.
Yeah. Just like the old days with the Milwaukee Braves, and it was spawn and sane and pray for rain. So that's
exactly.
Okay. Well, Chester.
Yeah, I go back long enough to remember that.
Yes, so do I. We're from the same generation. So, and you have the middle initial of L. Well, so do I. So you see, we've got everything in common. So.
Oh, good.
So, your books that we have from the potato to Star Trek and beyond. And we also have, let's see, there's the Trek Continues, more memoirs of a rocket scientist. So how does a potato lead to Star Trek? Let's just start with that question.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, my publisher tells me strict orders. I'm not to tell you about the potato. That's supposed to be a come on so that you read the book.
Good idea. So.
Anyway, I will say this about the potato. It's something that happened when I was just ready to go off to college. And it was a dangerous encounter that I had with an unforgiving potato that I still, and it really was dangerous. I still have the scars from the encounter. So
okay.
It's a very exciting story for those that want to pay attention to exciting stories.
Well, when we jump into the book, the first thing we talk about is you went on a river trip in Ethiopia. How did that come about?
Well, that's a bit of a story. When I was a little kid, my parents took me to the Grand Canyon. I think I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. And in those days, Emery Kolb of the Kolb brothers was still alive, and he was narrating a film that he and his brother had made back in 1913, if you can believe this. What they did was they took a boat through the Grand Canyon, and they filmed it all the way back in 1913. So the Kolb brothers became very famous with their studio, and I got the privilege of listening to Emery Kolb give the lecture about taking the boat through the Grand Canyon. And I just absolutely fell in love with the idea. It was something that the whole time I was growing up, I wanted to take a boat through the Grand Canyon. So eventually I got out of school, got a job. I had enough money. I went and took a boat through the Grand Canyon as a passenger. And I got absolutely hooked with running rivers. And I've run rivers from Alaska to Africa, as you can tell.
Wow.
And the way the Ethiopian expedition came about, I was sitting around a campfire down in the depths of the Grand Canyon talking to some other boatmen. We were sitting next to the river. And these guys had just gotten back from the first expedition down the Elmo River in Ethiopia. And I was absolutely intrigued with the stories that they were telling about the expedition. And they said, well, hey, we're going in another couple of years. We're going to go again. And I said, can I come along? They said, sure. So that's how I got on this expedition. It was the second expedition through absolutely wild country. There were no natives in the area that we passed through. It was a deep canyon, with a river that very much like the Colorado River, and the canyon is actually deeper than the Colorado, down through the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
But the Omo Canyon was eroded away, so it was a little softer than the Grand Canyon.
Gotcha.
But it was absolutely wild, nothing but wild animals there because the tsetse flies kept the natives away.
Good. Yes, you don't want to get bit by those things. Is that what causes?
No, you don't.
Is that the so-called sleeping sickness fly?
Well, that's in another part of Africa. This particular area, the flies killed the cattle, and because the natives lived on their cattle, they stayed completely away from the area. But let me tell you what a tsetse fly is like. Picture the biggest, most ferocious horsefly you've ever encountered, and have that fly be able to bite through clothing.
Oh, no thanks. So,
of course, we were environmentalists, but we had this ritual that we'd perform. We'd trap a tsetse fly and pull its wings off and throw it in the river and just say, die. I mean, that was our relationship to that particular type of wildlife in that part of the world.
How many actual rivers then, or is it too many to count? Have you actually done...
I really don't. I'd have to go through the list, but a couple of rivers, 3 rivers up in Alaska, and a bunch of rivers here in the United States, and then that one river in Africa.
Wow. So it's
and actually I was trained as a boatman and trained as a whitewater kayaker as well.
Okay. So how did you find time to become an engineer with all this river stuff going on?
Well, that's a long story. When I was a kid, I was a voracious reader. And I had an arrangement with the library that every new science fiction book that came through the door, I got first dibs on. So I read everything. I read everything that was being published during the golden age of science fiction, which was the late 40s and 1950s. And I absolutely had to become an engineer. I mean, and of course, in those days, rockets were very, very fantastical. But I had my goal set on being a rocket engineer eventually, which I did become.
So where did you go to university for all of this?
Well, my undergraduate was at UC Berkeley, and I got a degree in physics from Berkeley. And then I went to graduate school at UC Irvine. I was one of the charter students there, and there's a story involved in that. But we actually were the first students at the new campus of the university. To give you an idea, the student body was a little over 1,000 at that time, about the size of a small high school.
Right.
And it's now close to 40,000 students. So the place has grown enormously since I was a student there.
No.
But I did graduate studies in physics, and then over in the School of Engineering, I did graduate studies there as well.
Wow. So back to the sci-fi era, 40s and 50s, did you have... You must have had a few favorite authors where you couldn't wait for their next work to come out.
Well, yeah. Obviously, Robert Heinlein was number one on the list. I think for most people of my generation, he was the number one. I loved a lot of other ones. Poul Anderson was another favorite of mine. He had some wonderful stories, time travel stories, and other kinds of stories that really sucked me in. And then. There's just so many great authors from that period. I was a very quick reader. It was my habit to read a book a day, and usually science fiction, but obviously not just science fiction. I read a lot of science-type books as well.
Okay. So how did that sort of evolve into something that became the Tholian Web? I don't understand because I'm not really a Star Trek fan, I'm sorry to say.
Well, oddly enough, neither was I. What happened was I'd mentioned that I was a charter student at UC Irvine when the campus opened up.
Right.
So I had a fellow student, Judy Burns, that I got acquainted with. What was going on was we needed a student government. So Judy and I and a couple of other kids got elected to put together the student constitution for the new student government. So Judy and I were the principal architects of the new student government at UC Irvine. And we were actually political opponents. She led the conservative faction. I led the liberal faction, and we got along just fine. Judy graduated, and I continued as a graduate student. And Judy got really interested in Star Trek. And I didn't even own a television at the time. I later bought a television just to watch the moon landings.
Oh, right.
And she was infatuated with Star Trek. She was a great fan of Star Trek. So she decided to write a speculative script for Star Trek. Judy was an absolutely fabulous storyteller. There's more to talk about in just a bit, but she decided she managed to get a hold of a Hollywood agent so that she could get her script through the door. Without an agent, your script's never read. And she submitted a script to Star Trek. Well, Star Trek went off the air.
Yep.
At the end of the second season. So Judy got together with a bunch of people, and they lobbied to get Star Trek back on the air. And no canceled television show had ever been put back on the air. This was the first occasion in which a show actually got put back on the air through the very noisy bunch of fans that coalesced around the studio. So Judy was looking for story ideas, and she had somehow roped me into this Star Trek stuff. She sat me down and showed me a bunch of videos, recordings of various episodes, so that I had it in my head. And I was being polite with her because, this is kid stuff. And I have to tell you, it really did get into my head. I really was enjoying those shows. So one night I fell asleep, and I had a dream. And in the dream, I was on the bridge of the Enterprise with Captain Kirk and all the rest of the crew up there. And there was a ghost that was haunting the bridge. Uh-huh. And the dream was a very powerful one. I woke up, and as a result of the dream, and I said, "That's really interesting. Got to tell Judy." So I grabbed a notepad, and I wrote down the essence of what I had dreamed, and I called Judy, and I went back to sleep and called Judy in the morning, and she thought it was a great idea for a story. So she said, "Let's collaborate," and that's how the two of us got started with writing a speculative script for Star Trek. Obviously, there's a lot more to the story than that, but that's how it started. Wow. It started with a ghost dream,
a ghost story.
Ghost story.
Wow.
In a dream.
So, when did you? Let's jump ahead a bit. When did you decide, looking back on all your adventures from raging rapids, crocodiles, scorpions, baboons, and Star Trek, to put it all into a book form and followed by another book? What made you decide you should do that?
Tragedy made me do it.
Oh.
What happened was I had been married for 20 years, and then came home from work one day, and my wife was sitting in a chair. She got out of the chair and collapsed. Her heart had stopped. She literally collapsed right in front of me.
Oh.
And the paramedics arrived. They got her heart started again, but there was no way she was going to recover. It had been too long a time, so she passed away officially the next day.
Oh.
But I went into the deepest depression. I mean, it just knocked the socks off of me completely, because Sarah and I were so very close. It was a really good relationship. And what happened was I couldn't stay at home in the period, in preparation for the funeral and all the rest. I just couldn't stay in this house. So I went to work, and people at work said, "What the heck are you doing here?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be at home preparing the funeral." I said, "I can't stay in the house."
Right.
I had to go to work. So I started writing the eulogy for my wife for the funeral mass. And what I found was very interesting. The more I wrote, the more my spirits lifted. I was writing about her and her experiences. And it just lifted my spirits a little bit. And then, of course, after that was, I finished with that, went home, and I went back into my depression. And we had a good funeral. I had people come from all over, and we had a really good party after the burial and so on. After everybody left and I went back into the depths, I thought about what had happened when I was writing the eulogy. And I said, I got to do this. And I started writing stories. I kind of thought of them in those days as just letters to my dear Sarah. That she'd be reading these stories. She loved my stories. I had written a few stories before that, which she liked very much. And so I wrote her a story as a letter, and that lifted my spirits a little bit. So I wrote another one, and writing story after story, I climbed the steps back into some kind of rational sanity, and I just kept writing, and I've been writing. I've now got 3 books written. The third book is going to be edited next year. And then I've run out of stories after 3 books. But we'll put it aside after that. But yeah, and I'm going on 84, so I've got a long life and lots of adventures to draw upon, and most particularly the adventures of the wonderful people that I've run into along the way.
Boy.
The aerospace industry is full of genius, and I've run into some of the greatest, most amazing individuals you can possibly imagine. And I've written stories about these wonderful people.
Are we speaking of aerospace and Star Trek and trekking to the stars? Are we ever going to get to Mars?
Oh, we'll get there. Yeah, we'll probably do a lot more on the moon before we do very much at Mars. I know Mars is the hobby of Elon Musk,
right?
But Mars is a really difficult thing to do. We may put some people down to do some scouting, and then we establish a small base there in the next few decades. But it's probably going to be a century or more before Mars really develops into anything really significant.
Well, I won't be around. I'm 76, so I won't be around for that either. But that's okay.
I won't see it. I'd be lucky to see a Mars landing.
So we've got From the Potato to Star Trek and Beyond by Chester L. Richards. Also, The Trek Continues, and that's has letters to Sarah involved, and there's also a cat. So do you still, I guess the cat won't be around anymore either.
No, I have to tell you, my last cat passed away a couple of years ago, and that was really hard.
Yep.
And I thought about getting another cat, but with my age, the cats would outlive me.
Right.
And I just didn't think it would be fair to the cats.
Right.
So, I passed on that. But boy, did I love the company. I've had, Sarah brought a cat into my life, an orange tabby micro cat that was so ferocious she was the boss of all the cats in the neighborhood.
Oh.
And then we got 2 Bengal cats, and eventually those passed away. And then we got 2 more Bengal cats, and the last of them passed away, a couple of years ago.
Oh. Yep.
So I've had all these cats in my adult life, and of course I had a kitten when I was a boy. And so, cats have been in my life since a very early age.
Well, I'm looking at the picture of the cover of The Trek Continues. Sarah looks like a very vivacious, blonde, happy, outgoing person, so I'm sure you miss her terribly.
Yeah, I do, and that is Sunny in the picture on the cover, by the way. let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was a strawberry blonde and very beautiful. We hooked up. We were in our 40s when we hooked up, but Sarah was the most amazing intellect. One of the most amazing intellects I've ever run into. In terms of education, she was very well educated. She was an anthropology major as an undergraduate, and she got a master's in English literature, a master's in psychology, and a master's in music.
Oh, jeez.
And the reason for the music was that she was a trained opera singer, and she sang with the Seattle Opera.
Oh.
And she was well known in that part of the world as a stage comedian. She could steal the stage from the most glamorous diva, and she'd just steal the. There are stories about famous singers throwing pottery behind the scenes because Sarah had stolen the show. So she was gifted on stage, and marvelous.
Marvelous.
And then there's more to it, because as an anthropologist, she was interviewing the tribal shaman of the Nez Perce Indians in Idaho. And that was a lady named Ella. And Ella took Sarah under her wing and trained her as with the tribal shaman, all the folklore and everything, and then adopted her as her daughter.
Oh.
So Sarah was adopted into this Indian tribe.
Yep.
So when I got together with Sarah, I didn't realize it at first, but I was marrying an American Indian, strawberry blonde American Indian.
Well,
So that'll give you a sense of how amazing this woman really was.
That's amazing.
Extraordinary experience.
Yeah. From the potato to Star Trek and beyond, and the trek continues. The two books that are out now by Chester L. Richards. What do you hope these books will accomplish when people sit down and read them? What do you hope they come away with?
I hope they come away entertained and maybe a little bit uplifted. The fact that I've been through a trauma and I was able to discuss how I got out of that trauma, it seems to help people. The feedback I've gotten nothing but positive feedback from the stories, by the way. Just a little bit about the stories. They're all true stories, every one of them.
Right.
The river stories are literally drawn from the journal that I kept while I was on the river. So the stories are word for word what I wrote down within hours of the experience that happened. And how I got started writing, this was before before I even met Sarah, was I was writing this journal on my river excursions, and people wanted to know what I was writing. So I started reading the journal around the campfire at people's request. And what I found was people thought they were really good stories, and they encouraged me to tell the stories. The thing that's interesting about that is the people were there when these things happened. So I'm writing within 2 or 3, 4 hours after an event. I'm writing about the event, and the people I'm telling the story to were there and participated. And so I had to stay completely honest and write as accurate and true this story and as entertaining a story as I possibly could. And so that's how I got into the habit of writing stories. Was writing around the camp, basically writing for a campfire, and having these absolutely the most ferocious critics, because these are people who knew what happened.
Right. Within hours, they knew. It wasn't like it was 4 years later or something where memories of dim. It was the real thing at the real time. Wow, that's interesting. Chester L. Richards, where can we find the books?
You can find them at Amazon. You can find them at Barnes & Noble. And they're easy to come by. Usually they're printed up when you obviously can get an electronic version of the story instantly.
Right.
If you get a paper copy of it, they usually print them up and deliver within maybe 2 or 3 or 4 days, something like that.
Oh, perfect. So, one more question before I have to wrap it up. You have a website, of course, because that's what I'm looking at. What is the website, please?
Well, my website is one word, ChesterLRichards.com. And you can get lots of information. There's interviews on there. There's links to my Twitter X site and to my Facebook site. And I posted a lot of my photographs there, so you get a sense of the travels that I've taken all over creation, so to speak. What I hope that people find when they read the stories, and they can read the stories in any order that they choose. There's no time sequence to the stories. They're just independent stories. But I hope that people find the stories enjoyable. I hope that they find them uplifting. I hope that they enjoy encountering the extraordinary people that I've run into along the way.
Chester L. Richards, the books are From the Potato to Star Trek and Beyond, and The Trek Continues. It's been a treat, sir. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. You can find Talking Books and Stuff anywhere you get your podcasts. Over 300 episodes await you.